This is Courage Barbell, and I'm your host, Chad Ikes. On today's show, I'm going to take a little time to reflect on a great powerlifter and ambassador of the sport that we very sadly lost yesterday, and that is Ernie Frantz. For the people that don't know Ernie Frantz, I'm going to talk a little bit about him from my personal experiences with him, and a little bit about why I think it's so important that we look into the history of the sport and we know the history of the sport. And I'm not an expert by any means, but I've always had the older guys that I looked up to. I think it's important because strength training is a progression over time. And the reason people are getting stronger and improving is because they're building on what the people that came before them learned and have passed on. And I think it's just important to pay homage to those people and remember them. I mean, there's some great and amazing lifters and guys in this sport. I mean, you can go back to Louis Cyr, Paul Anderson, go up to Bruce Wilhelm, Don Reinhout, John Cole. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. You got Kaz Mar, John Paul Sigmason. Like, it just keeps going and going. Ed Cohn, and then you got guys like Ernie Frantz, who was still lifting. Well, he was lifting way up into his 80s and competing. And when I started getting into powerlifting in '97, he was still very big in the sport. And like the federations that I chose to go with was the AAPF, AWPC, and then the non-tested version of that was APF and WPC. And these were the federations, the biggest federations that had the biggest, baddest lifters. So that's where I wanted to be, and Ernie was running these federations. And that led us to the WPO. So when I was coming along and as I got better and better, I was fortunate to meet and talk to Ernie a bunch of different times. And he was just, man, he was a great guy. Like, he always was willing to answer questions. He always loved talking training. He always loved giving advice. I never saw the guy get pissed off. I'm sure he did, because we all do. But I mean, he always seemed happy. He really loved being around the sport. He loved new lifters. Like when I first met him, I was just coming up. I was nobody. And he always treated me well. And as I improved and I kept improving, he seemed always to be there and be excited for how I was doing. Unfortunately, I never actually trained under him or got to train with him. But as many times as I talked to him, he was always, a little bit of a mentor to me, because I took the fact that I got to talk with him and listen to what he said meant a lot to me. To be coming up and have a guy at that level spend that kind of time with you is huge. So, when I heard he passed away, I posted a little thing on my Instagram, and then I was actually going through my old magazines, and this right here was like one of the first books that I got about powerlifting. I still have it to this day. And I thought what I would do is, he has his 10 Commandments of powerlifting written in here. And I thought I would go over those and give my 2 cents after rising to be one of the best, the highest ranked powerlifters and some of the highest numbers in history. And I'm going to touch on the one thing that he has. One of the things in here he told me personally, and it really stuck in my head, and I still use it a lot to this day. So Frantz's 10 Commandments. Number 1, equipment, suits, wraps, etc. should be a benefit. So learn how to use them wisely. This is really important too, because if you're going to wear something, get everything you can out of it. Understand how it works, what it's supposed to do, how to get the biggest benefit out of it. I mean, this goes, if you're just wearing wrist wraps, learn how to wrap them and how to use them so they give you the biggest benefit. Learn how to use your belt. I mean, a belt, depending on your weight and the ratio and everything, like a belt should add 100 pounds to your lifts, if not more, if you're learning how to use it correctly and bracing into it. Number 2, make sure you warm up properly and listen to your body. Man, part 2 of that, learn to listen to your body, is huge. I've struggled with that greatly throughout my career. Still struggle with it to this day because I think sometimes I can have a massive ego. But, you know, he's right. And this is basic. This is foundational stuff right here. You know, learn how to warm up and learn how to warm up right. And don't just come in and hit a couple things and think you can go heavy. This is a sport of attrition, basically. You know, it takes a long time to get strong. I don't care how fast you want it to come. It's going to take a long time. So the healthier you can be, the better you're going to be in the end. Number 3, and this is the one that we talked about personally and had a really great conversation about. Act like your light weights are heavy, so your heavy weights feel light. And a lot of people, this doesn't mean act like your heavy weights are light or treat them like they're light. It means when you have light weight, act like it's going to be a heavy weight. In your mind, go, listen, this is going to be heavy. I got to get my technique right. I got to get my bracing right. I got to get my IAP right. Just because it's light don't mean I screw around. You know, this is an opportunity to work on my technique. This is an opportunity to work on my mental game. This is an opportunity to focus and lift with intent all the time. And if you do that, where he says, so your heavy weights will feel light. You do that and you work up in that and you get in that proper technique and you hit that weight quickly and explosively. And if you keep training that, that's going to allow you to make those heavy weights feel light. Number 4, concentration separates the good from the bad. I switch concentration with intent, because to me, they kind of go together. You have to, don't just go lift. I see a lot of people that just lift. Stop just lifting. Concentrate and focus on what you're doing. Even with your supplemental lifts, what muscle are you trying to work? Are you trying to make that mind-muscle connection? Are you focusing on what you're doing? When you have your main lifts, are you focusing on shoulder blades down, shoulder blades back, tough brace, squeezing the glutes, rooting are you focusing on all the things that need to happen during that lift? Or are you just trying to lift heavy? Number 5, keep every body part tight during the entire movement. This kind of goes back to what I just said. You know, you need to concentrate to do that, and everything has to be tight. When you're doing a big lift, you must stay tight. So you need to practice that same thing with the lighter weights. Remember what we said in number 3. You know, people tend to go, oh, I'm just benching. Well, no, a bench is a full body movement. You're using every muscle and you need to keep everything tight. And on the eccentric phase, you're just getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. Number 6, when you're trying a new style, work up slowly, but work hard. So I think a good example of this would be like a conventional deadlifter going, hey, I want to learn sumo. Well, the first day isn't going to be perfect. The first day isn't going to be great. The first day, you're probably not going to pull a PR. So you need to be patient. You need to build it up slowly to work those different muscle groups that are being used. And most of all, you need to work your ass off. Like, it's going to take time. Accept that from the beginning. Accept that it's going to take hard work. And in the end, that's going to be way more successful for you. Number 7. There is no excuse for a lack of practice. All of my clients, if you're watching this, this is what I'm talking about. There's no excuse for a lack of practice. You don't have to be in the gym to practice. You have all day 24/7 to practice. I get out of my couch. I scoot to the end. I get in a squat position. I root my feet. I build tension and I stand up. When I'm driving, I work on my bracing. You know, I work on my posture. Am I controlling my scapula? Do some protraction, retraction on my scapula. There is no reason for a lack of practice. None. And depending on how hard you train and how your system is set up, you can always add in GPP sessions, which are a great time to work on that technique. Number 8, a good deadlifter will always finish strong. Now again, this is kind of my take on this. I recommend you purchasing this book. My take on this, the top of the deadlift should always be the easiest part of the pull. You should finish strong. There's no reason for you not to finish strong. I see a lot of deadlifters that don't finish strong because they don't practice their technique and they don't get their technique right. Which again, it's funny how all these things tie into each other. Oh, you don't deadlift right because your technique got wrong? Well, what about number 7? Well, what about number 3? Like, are you following all these rules? Number 9, bodybuilding and powerlifting do not mix. Make the choice. Beautiful muscles or raw power. It's funny because he was successful in both of those, and I think he was the only man to actually win a national bodybuilding competition and a powerlifting meet in the same day. But he's right. Like, you can be a powerlifter and be lean and look really, really good. But a strong muscle looks different than a bodybuilding muscle in most cases. You could be good at both of them if you want, but if you really want to be great, you got to pick one. Number 10, work with a positive attitude. A winner thinks he can. A loser never thinks. Holy shit, that's huge. You got to have a positive attitude. The mind controls the body. Okay? You understand that the mind controls the body. Without the mind, the body's nothing. I've seen strong people miss lifts, miss attempts, not become as successful as they could be because they have a weak mind, because they're not positive. You need to train your mind just like you train your body. And that starts with a positive attitude and looking at things in a positive way. And you can train your body to do that more. A winner thinks he can, a loser never thinks. There's a reason I was so successful in powerlifting. And it's most definitely not my genetics. I don't have horrible genetics, but I have no means, I do not have good genetics. I have all kinds of health issues. Well, I have sleep issues, depression issues, possibly bipolar, chronic compartment syndrome, apnea, like all these different things. And plus, I was never that great at sports naturally. I had to work my ass off to get there. I got there because I thought positive and because I thought. I researched who I wanted to listen to, who I wanted to learn from. I took what they said and I thought about it and I contemplated it and I bent it how I needed to bend it to work for me. And then I asked more guys what their thoughts were. And I tried to learn all the time. I tried to use my mind more than I used my body. And I trained intelligent. I didn't train stupid. I didn't do stuff based on my emotions. I did it based on my logic. That's how I was able to beat a lot of guys that were either stronger than me or had much better genetics than I had. And I did it without a full-time coach. I did it with my own team, in my own place. Just us. And I did have help from coaches here and there because I always sought out more information. And I sought it from the best of the best. So like these 10 commandments right here are huge. Even to go back and read them, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm actually a little proud of myself that even though I don't think of them in this form and I haven't read this in years, like this stuff stuck with me. And I think that's maybe a tribute to Ernie. And how important he was to the sport. So, that's a big loss for powerlifting, but hopefully his ideas and concepts can keep passing on. And I don't know if you can still get this book, but if you can get this book, this is a great book to read. It's a great book to look back on. I'll actually probably end up rereading this now. and try to remember some of the great insight that Ernie had on strength sports. And he's a good guy. I hope I can be as strong as him as I get older. Okay, guys, I'm out of here. Chat out. If you're new to lifting, do some research, man. Look up some of the old guys. I know knowledge has expanded, but these are the guys that came up with the new knowledge, with the knowledge at the time. And a lot of them still are out there coaching and helping people and still learning. And there's a lot to be learned from those guys. Signing off.